There is something happening to you right now that most people will never understand until it is far too late. While you sit and wait for the right moment, while you tell yourself that tomorrow will be the day, while you convince yourself that you are simply not ready yet, your future is already being built, not by your dreams, not by your good intentions, but by what you are actually doing today, or more dangerously, by what you are failing to do. I spent the better part of my life studying the difference between those who succeed and those who merely wish they had. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, the most dangerous misunderstanding about success is the belief that the future is something that arrives. People imagine it like a letter delivered to their door, something that shows up one morning, and they either like what is written inside or they do not. But that is not how life works. Your future is a structure. It is being assembled brick by brick with every choice you make and every choice you avoid. And the painful truth I have observed again and again is this. Most people are building a life they do not want, and they do not even realize they are the ones doing the construction. In all my years of research, interviewing and studying the habits of the most successful individuals this world has ever produced, I found one pattern that repeated itself without exception. It was not talent that separated these men and women from the crowd. It was not luck. It was not some mysterious advantage handed to them at birth. It was simply this. They understood that waiting is not a neutral act. Waiting is a decision, and it is almost always the wrong one. Today, I want to share with you something that could completely change how you see your life. Not merely how you think about success, but how you think about time itself. Because once you understand what time is really doing to you and what you can do with it, you will never waste another day the same way again. And the final lesson I will share with you today may be the one that matters most, because it exposes the one lie nearly everyone believes about their own potential. But we will get there. Let us begin. The first thing you must understand is that waiting feels safe, but it is the most expensive habit you will ever develop. Consider this carefully. When you say to yourself, I will start next month, or I need to think about it a little longer, or I am waiting until conditions improve, you are not simply pausing. You are paying a price. You are paying with the one currency you can never earn back. You are paying with time. And here is what makes this so treacherous. The cost of waiting is invisible. You do not see a bill arrive. You do not feel anything leave your possession. That is precisely why people do it so freely. If waiting cost you $100 for every day of inaction, you would leap out of bed tomorrow morning and get to work without hesitation. But because the cost is hidden, because it reveals itself only years later, in the form of regret, missed opportunities, and a life that has grown smaller than it should have been, people keep paying this price without ever knowing it. I want you to think about something. If a man placed just a small amount of money aside each day, faithfully, without exception, in a few years he would be astonished at what had accumulated. Most people understand the power of compounding when it applies to a savings account, but very few apply the same principle to their daily actions, their daily habits, their daily decisions. The compounding of small, purposeful efforts is just as real as the compounding of money, and the compounding of small, wasted days is just as devastating as the compounding of debt. In all my research, I never found a single successful individual who waited until they felt fully prepared before they began. Not one. They started businesses before the plan was complete. They invested before they understood every detail. They took the first step before they could see the entire staircase. And this was not recklessness. It was applied faith, the willingness to act on belief before proof arrives, because they understood something that escapes most people entirely. You do not become ready and then begin. You begin, and through the act of beginning, you become ready. This is the first shift I want you to make. Stop treating readiness as a requirement. Start treating action as the very tool that creates readiness. The moment you begin, your mind awakens. It starts solving problems it never would have touched while you sat idle. Confidence does not grow from contemplation. It grows from doing. And clarity, that thing everyone says they are waiting for, does not arrive before movement. Clarity is born from movement. Ask yourself honestly, what have you been waiting to feel ready for? And what might happen if you simply began today? Now, here is where I must take you deeper, because the second truth I want to share with you is one that very few people wish to hear. You are not standing still. I want you to understand this completely. There is no such thing as standing still in this life. Every single day, you are either advancing or you are falling behind. The world does not pause because you have decided to wait. Commerce moves. Opportunities appear and vanish. Other men and women are learning, growing, taking risks, and building. While you hesitate, the distance between where you are and where you could have been grows wider, not gradually, but rapidly. Let me illustrate this with a simple observation. Imagine two individuals of equal age, equal background, equal native intelligence. One decides today to invest just 30 minutes each morning in developing a new skill, studying the principles of wealth, or building something of value, anything at all. The other decides to wait. He tells himself he will begin when circumstances improve. He says he needs more time to consider. After 1 week, the difference between these two people is nearly invisible. After 1 month, it is modest. But after 1 year, the gap between them is enormous. And after 5 years, they are living in entirely different worlds. Different levels of income, different quality of opportunity, different degrees of confidence and self-mastery. They began at the same place. They possessed the same raw material. Yet they arrived at completely different destinations. The only difference was what each one chose to do with today. This is the compound effect of daily personal initiative. And I have observed that it operates in both directions with equal force. Small, purposeful actions performed consistently compound into extraordinary results. But small acts of avoidance also compound, postponing the important work, choosing ease over effort, saying tomorrow instead of now. These choices accumulate silently into a life of frustration, envy, and quiet bewilderment about what went wrong. Every man or woman I studied who built lasting wealth understood this principle in the marrow of their bones. They did not wait for some grand flash of inspiration. They did not require perfect conditions. They simply did something useful every single day, even when they were weary, even when they were uncertain, even when no one noticed. And over time, those small, faithful efforts became something astonishing. But here is where I must warn you about a trap, one of the most clever traps I have ever encountered, and most people walk straight into it without ever realizing they are caught. It is the trap of preparation without action. Now let me be clear, preparation itself is not your enemy. Study, planning, the gathering of knowledge, these are valuable. They are necessary. But I have discovered that there is a precise point where preparation stops serving you and begins to imprison you. There is a point where reading one more book, attending one more lecture, refining one more plan, reorganizing one more set of notes, all of it becomes a sophisticated disguise for the thing you are actually afraid of. And that thing is the risk of stepping forward and possibly failing. I have seen this pattern destroy more human potential than laziness ever could, and here is why it is so dangerous. The person caught in this trap does not appear idle. They do not feel idle. They appear diligent. They appear serious. They can point to their shelves of books, their notebooks full of plans, and declare, "Look at how hard I have been working. Look at how committed I am." But they are not working, they are hiding, and in some quiet, honest corner of their mind, they know it. Consider the man who has spent 3 years researching how to start a business. He has read dozens of books. He has attended lectures and seminars. He has filled journals with ideas and strategies, but he has not started. He has not offered a single product or service to a single customer. He has not tested a single idea against reality, and if you ask him why, he will tell you he is nearly ready. Just one more thing to learn, just one more detail to settle. I have learned through decades of observation that you will never possess all the information you need before you begin. You will never eliminate every risk. You will never hold a guarantee in your hand. And if you wait for certainty before you act, you will wait your entire life, because certainty does not exist before action. It is created after action by those who had the courage to move forward without it. So if you recognize yourself in what I am describing, if you have been endlessly preparing but never truly starting, let me ask you this. What is one thing you could do today, not perfectly, not completely, just one small definite step forward? I can assure you that single step will teach you more than another year of preparation ever will. Now the fourth lesson goes deeper still. And this is where most people begin to feel uncomfortable, because it reveals something about their behavior they may never have examined. You may not realize it, but you have been trained to wait. I have observed this conditioning in nearly every person I have studied who struggled to achieve their potential. Society begins training you to wait from the time you are very young. In school, you are taught to wait for instructions, wait for permission, wait for the teacher to call upon you, wait for your marks. Then you enter the world of commerce, and the training continues. Wait for the promotion. Wait for someone in authority to tell you what to do. Wait for the annual raise. Culture itself teaches you to wait for the right age, the right economy, the right conditions, the right feeling of confidence. But I discovered something extraordinary in the lives of those who achieved greatly. Not a single one of them waited for permission. Success does not come to those who stand patiently in line. Success comes to those who exercise personal initiative, who create their own turn rather than waiting for one to be offered. And this conditioning goes deeper than most people suspect. It becomes woven into your very character. You begin to believe that waiting is the responsible, prudent thing to do. You mistake inaction for patience. But I want you to understand a critical distinction. True patience is not passive. True patience is the discipline to keep building day after day, week after week, even when results are not yet visible. True patience is sustained action without immediate reward. That is a very different thing from sitting idle and calling it wisdom. The wealthiest individuals I studied did not wait for opportunities to present themselves. They created opportunities through organized planning and decisive action. They did not wait for favorable conditions before investing their effort. They found ways to build in any condition, prosperous or difficult. They did not wait for someone to extend them a chance. They extended themselves a chance. And that single quality, the willingness to act through personal initiative rather than waiting for permission from the world, separated them from every other person who shared their dreams but never moved. Now, the fifth lesson concerns something I want to discuss with complete honesty. It concerns the true nature of fear, because fear is the invisible engine behind almost all hesitation. Most people believe that if they wait long enough, their fear will gradually fade on its own. They imagine that one morning they will wake up and feel brave. They treat courage as though it were a change in weather, something that arrives naturally if you are patient enough. But I have learned that this is the precise opposite of how fear operates. The longer you avoid the thing you fear, the larger it grows in your imagination. Every day of inaction gives your mind more time to invent dangers, exaggerate risks, and rehearse disasters until they feel like certainties. The longer you postpone starting that business, the more impossible it appears. The longer you avoid making that financial decision, the more confusing money becomes. Fear feeds upon hesitation the way fire feeds upon dry wood. Every day you fail to act, you are strengthening the very force that holds you captive. But here is the other side of that truth, and I find it remarkable. Action dissolves fear, not all at once, not without discomfort. But every time you do the thing you have been avoiding, the fear loses a portion of its hold over you. The first time is difficult. The second time is hard. The 10th time is manageable. And eventually, the thing that once paralyzed you becomes something you scarcely think about at all. I observed this in every successful person I ever studied. They were not fearless. They were not made of superior material. They experienced the same doubts, the same dread, the same tightness in their chest. But they acted more often than they hesitated. They chose discomfort over avoidance. And over time, this habit of moving through fear, not around it, but directly through it, reshaped their character entirely. It can reshape yours as well, but only if you begin. And the most costly mistake people make with fear, I will address that shortly, because it connects to something I have not yet shared with you. First, I want to discuss the sixth lesson. It has to do with how you regard your own circumstances, because I suspect I know what some of you are thinking right now. You are thinking, that philosophy may work for others, but you do not understand my situation. Perhaps you are burdened with debt. Perhaps you are trapped in work that drains you, but that you feel unable to leave. Perhaps you carry family responsibilities that feel overwhelming. Perhaps you have attempted something before, perhaps more than once, and you carry the sting of failure with you still. I understand these are real difficulties. I do not dismiss them. But I must tell you something important, and I say it because I have seen its truth demonstrated countless times. Your circumstances are not your chains. They are your starting point. And your starting point does not determine your destination. It never has. Every person who ever built something of lasting value began from somewhere imperfect. Many of the most remarkable success stories I encountered during my research involved individuals who started with nothing. No capital, no connections, no formal education, no encouragement. They did not wait for conditions to become favorable. They did not wait for the world to be fair. They assessed where they stood, accepted it without bitterness, and said, "This is where I begin." Let me share an observation with you. I once studied a man who began with no formal education and almost no money to his name. He started by selling goods from a simple cart, and everyone around him said he would never amount to anything. But this man did not wait. He worked. He studied human nature. He saved what little he earned. He improved himself daily. Within 10 years, he owned a store. Within 20, he had built an enterprise. His circumstances did not change first. He changed, and his circumstances followed. Now contrast that with a man born into every advantage, education, family wealth, social connections, yet he waited. He wanted the perfect idea, the perfect timing, the guaranteed result. And 20 years later, he found himself in essentially the same position, still planning, still deliberating, still telling himself that someday he would begin. The starting point was irrelevant. The action was everything. When you use your circumstances as your reason to wait, you surrender your power. You are declaring, "I cannot act until the world rearranges itself for my benefit." But I have never seen the world rearrange itself for a man who sat and waited. Not once. The world rearranges itself for the man who acts. And when you act, even from a difficult, imperfect, discouraging starting point, you begin to alter your circumstances from the inside out. Not instantly, not dramatically, but steadily, surely, and permanently. You do not need a perfect situation. You need a definite decision. You need to look at exactly where you are, accept it with complete honesty, and say, "This is where I start." Not where you wish you could start, not where you believe you deserve to start, where you actually stand today. Now here is the seventh lesson, and it connects directly to what I said about fear. This is the most costly mistake people make when dealing with fear. And in all my years of study, I have rarely heard anyone address it plainly. The mistake is this: people attempt to conquer fear before they act. They believe they must first become brave, and then they will be ready to move. So they read about confidence. They study the habits of courageous people. They repeat affirmations to themselves. They try to think their way past the feeling of dread. And then, when the fear does not vanish, they conclude that they must not be ready, that something is wrong with them, that they need more time. But nothing is wrong with them. The approach itself is flawed. You cannot think your way past fear. You can only act your way through it. Fear is not a wall that must be demolished before you proceed. Fear is the weather you walk through on the way to your destination. It does not stop. You simply stop allowing it to stop you. The individuals I studied who built great fortunes and great lives did not wait until fear subsided. They made the decision while their hands trembled. They signed the agreement while their stomach turned. They launched the venture while every voice inside them insisted it would fail. And on the other side of those moments, on the other side of acting despite the fear, they discovered something remarkable. They discovered they were capable of far more than they had ever allowed themselves to believe. You will discover the same thing, but you will only find it on the other side of action, never on this side of hesitation. The eighth lesson draws much of this together. It concerns a concept I devoted many years to developing and refining, the concept of definiteness of purpose. And I believe it may be the single most important principle governing human achievement. Most people do not fail because they lack intelligence or ability. They fail because they lack direction. They drift. They move from one interest to another, one occupation to another, one ambition to another, never committing their full force to any single definite purpose. And because their energy is scattered across everything, they accomplish nothing of lasting significance. Consider water for a moment. A river that spreads across a wide, flat plain loses its power. It becomes shallow and sluggish. It cannot carry anything of weight. But take that same volume of water and force it through a narrow gorge, a single focused channel, and it becomes powerful enough to carve through solid rock. The water did not change. Not a single drop was added. Only the focus changed. Your mental and physical energy obeys the same law. When you scatter your attention across a dozen half-committed goals, when you want to start a business and study the markets and write a book and master a trade and learn a new craft all at the same time, you become like that wide, shallow river. You feel busy. You feel as though you are working tremendously hard, but you are making no meaningful progress in any direction. You are spreading yourself so thin that nothing you do carries the force needed to produce real change. However, when you choose one definite purpose, one clear, specific, burning desire that matters to you more than anything else, and you direct every ounce of your energy toward it, day after day, month after month, something extraordinary begins to happen. Obstacles that once seemed impossible begin to yield. Your subconscious mind begins working on the problem even while you sleep. People and resources you need begin appearing, almost as if drawn to you by the intensity of your focus. You become, in the truest sense, unstoppable. This is what I found without exception in the lives of every great achiever I studied. They did not attempt to do everything. They chose one definite purpose. They committed to it with a burning desire that others called unreasonable. They thought about it upon waking and before sleeping. They organized every plan, every habit, every relationship around it, and the world yielded to them, not because the world was generous, but because concentrated effort produces results that scattered effort never can. Here is something practical I want you to do. Today, take a clean sheet of paper. Write down in clear and specific terms the one goal that matters most to you, not a vague wish like, I want to be wealthy. That is too indefinite to move the subconscious mind. Write down precisely what you desire, precisely when you intend to have it, and precisely what you are prepared to give in return. Carry that paper with you. Read it aloud to yourself every morning when you wake and every evening before you sleep. Let it burn in your mind until it ceases to be a mere wish and becomes a white-hot command that governs your every action. Ask yourself right now, do you have a definiteness of purpose, not a general hope, not a passing interest, a specific, written, burning objective that you think about every day and work toward every day? If you do not, that is the first and most urgent thing you must correct, because without a definite purpose, every day feels interchangeable. Every effort feels pointless, and waiting feels entirely reasonable, because what exactly are you rushing toward? But with a definite purpose alive in your mind, waiting becomes unbearable, because you know precisely what you are building, and every wasted hour feels like leaving gold on the ground. If you are still listening, I want you to understand something. The fact that you are here absorbing these ideas tells me something important about your character. It tells me that part of you already knows the truth. Part of you has known for some time that waiting is costing you dearly. Part of you is ready to stop delaying and start building. Hold on to that feeling. Do not allow it to pass. Because what I am about to share with you next is the most important thing I will say today. The ninth and final lesson concerns a lie, and I told you at the beginning that this lesson might matter more than all the others combined, because this is the lie that holds more people in bondage than any other single thought on earth. The lie is this: I still have time. You say it to yourself constantly. You may have said it today. When you neglect your health, you think, I still have time to get well. When you waste an evening on trivial amusements, you think, I still have time to pursue my real work. When you remain in the wrong occupation, the wrong partnership, the wrong set of habits, you comfort yourself by whispering, there is no urgency. I still have time. But do you? Let me ask you plainly. Do you actually know how much time remains for you? No one does. No one has ever been given that knowledge. You understand this in your mind. Every person understands it. But almost no one lives as though they believe it. They treat time as though it were an endless commodity. They treat their deepest ambitions as though they could be placed in storage, tucked away somewhere safe, to be retrieved at some more convenient date, someday, later, when things settle down. But time is the one resource that never replenishes itself. Money lost can be earned again. Strength fades and returns. Knowledge can always be acquired. But a day that passes without purpose, without action, without building toward the life you were meant to live, that day is gone permanently. You will never recover it, not for any sum. And the accumulation of those empty, comfortable, purposeless days is what creates the quiet tragedy I have seen repeated in life after life, the tragedy of potential that was never applied, dreams that were never tested against reality, ability that was never given the chance to prove itself. I do not tell you this to create fear in you. I tell you this to set you free. Because once you truly accept that your time is limited, not as a grim thought, but as a clarifying, focusing, liberating truth, everything changes. Suddenly waiting feels foolish. Suddenly your excuses lose their grip. Suddenly that endeavor you have been postponing becomes the most urgent matter in your life. Because you understand in the deepest part of your being that the cost of inaction is infinitely greater than the cost of imperfect action. The most successful people I devoted my life to studying were not people without fear. They were not people without hardship or disadvantage or self-doubt. They were simply people who understood the irreplaceable value of today. They understood that this day, not tomorrow, not next season, not some imagined future when all conditions align, this day is where your future is being forged. Right here, right now, in the decisions you make within the next hour. Every morning you awaken and you are given a gift. 24 hours, no more and no less. The same allotment granted to every human soul on this earth. The titan of industry and the common laborer, the man of great wealth and the man of none. The difference between those who build extraordinary lives and those who merely exist comes down to a single factor, what they choose to do with those hours. You do not need more time. You do not need more money. You do not need better conditions or a more favorable economy or a different upbringing. What you need is a decision. You need to decide today, this very hour, that you are finished waiting, that you are finished preparing endlessly without acting, that you are finished using your circumstances as a reason to remain still, that you are finished allowing fear to govern your choices, that you are finished permitting the slow, quiet comfort of inaction to dissolve the ambition that still burns somewhere within you. Your future is not something that happens to you. It is something you build with your own hands, your own mind, your own daily choices. And you are building it right now, whether you are conscious of it or not. Every hour you spend today is a brick in the structure of your tomorrow. Every habit counts. Every decision matters. Every single day is either adding to the life you desire or subtracting from it. There is no neutral ground. So look at what you are building. Look with complete honesty, without excuse, without comfortable stories, without pretense. Examine your daily habits. Examine how you spend your mornings. Examine how you spend your evenings. Examine what you do when no obligation compels you and no one is watching. Is the life you are constructing the one you truly want? If it is, then continue with everything you have. Guard your time fiercely. Protect your purpose. Let nothing and no one pull you from the path. But if it is not, if you look upon your daily choices and recognize that the future taking shape, brick by brick, is not the future you once imagined for yourself, then today is the day you change direction. Not tomorrow, not at the start of the next month, not when you feel confident. Today. Because today is the only day that has ever been guaranteed to anyone. The life you will be living 5 years from now is being determined by what you do in the next 24 hours, and the next 24 after that, and the next after that. It is not one grand, dramatic decision that transforms everything in a single stroke. That is the stuff of fiction, not of life. In life, it is the small, daily, unglamorous decisions that no one witnesses and no one applauds. The decision to rise early and apply yourself. The decision to study when you would rather rest. The decision to save when you would rather spend. The decision to face the difficult matter instead of turning away. The decision to act when every fiber of your being whispers that you should wait. Those decisions, humble, quiet, consistent, are building your future at this very moment. So build wisely. Build with definiteness of purpose. Build with faith and discipline and personal initiative. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is a fiction that has kept millions of capable men and women exactly where they are. Dreaming but never doing, planning but never building, wishing but never acting. The only moment you possess is now. And now is more than sufficient if you will use it. There is a version of your life that you carry in your imagination, a version in which you are financially independent, in which you wake each morning with fire in your spirit and peace in your mind, in which your work carries meaning, in which those you love are secure, in which you have mastered yourself, your fears, your habits, your time, and you are living on your own terms. That version of your life is not a fantasy. It is real. It is achievable. It is waiting for you, but it will never arrive on its own. No amount of wishing will summon it. It must be built, brick by brick, day by day, decision by decision. And the construction begins today, not when you possess more capital, not when you acquire more knowledge, not when conditions become favorable, not when your fear subsides, today. Because the greatest tragedy in life is not failure. A man can recover from failure. A man can learn from failure. Failure can become the very foundation upon which something magnificent is built. No. The greatest tragedy is the man who possessed the talent, the intelligence, the burning desire, and the opportunity, and simply waited too long. The man who spent his entire life preparing to begin and never began. Do not let that be your story. Your future is being built today. Make certain you are the one building it. If this lesson helped you, subscribe to Napoleon Mindset for more timeless principles of success and wealth.